Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here tonight to hear this panel discussion regarding the state of our roadways and local response. My name is Ed Moyer, your Grand County manager. Just to note, whether you were born in Grand County or you just moved here, we're all part of this small but mighty community, and that's really what makes us grand. Remember, we're amongst friends, neighbors, and fellow community members tonight. We're here because we all care about our Grand County community. So let's not lose sight of that, and we're in this together. Under Sheriff Schaefer.
Hi, good evening. Please join me for a moment of silence for those who lost their lives on our roadways this year. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Under Sheriff. All right. Thanks again for everyone coming out tonight. It's a really good turnout. I'd like to take a moment and also acknowledge some of our community members and partners. Grand County Board of County Commissioners, all three commissioners are here tonight. Our Assistant County Manager, our department leadership teams, as well as county staff, town mayors, board members, some of the town managers, and police chiefs. I saw a couple of our police chiefs tonight, fire districts, fire chiefs, Colorado Department of Transportation, Colorado State Patrol, Captain Parker. Thank you for being online and joining us tonight, as well as our local healthcare leaders, community nonprofits, and community partners. There's a lot of other folks in the room that I may have missed, and thank you for being here tonight. Okay, for some housekeeping items, we have 12 speakers that will be making presentations. I'll introduce each of them in a bit as they present. I'll introduce them when they come up. As for the question and answer process tonight, in an effort to accommodate this hybrid meeting and being respectful for everyone's time, we put QR codes in, and they're placed around the room for you to submit questions throughout tonight's meeting. The folks online should also use the QR code that's provided. Folks in person can also submit written or verbal comments to Alexis Kimbrough, our Director of Emergency Management. She has her hand raised over by the door by Chief Holsworth. So you can submit questions to her. We also put out QR codes in advance of tonight's meeting to encourage everyone to provide questions. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. I know that was kind of a pain, but thanks for taking the time. We had a great response. We have over 90 questions that were submitted. With that, we have 2 hours tonight. So since we can't answer every question individually during that 2-hour window, our team has worked really diligently to compile similar topic-related questions to eliminate redundancy in order to address as many key topics as we can tonight. So if you still don't hear an answer to your question that you submitted, we hope to take some time at the end of the meeting around 8:40, and we'll direct those questions to our panel from the audience at that time. Also, our team will be available after the meeting if you want to do more of a one-on-one question with them. So, all right. And then lastly, we're going to wrap up tonight, this evening, and discuss continued collaboration on what's next. And that's in terms of moving forward in next steps. So I'm done with the housekeeping items, and we'll jump into presentations. And at this time, I'd like to introduce and invite the Grand County Sheriff, Brett Schroetland, up to the podium, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone that's here in person, as well as I think we have about 25, 30 people online this evening. So a great hybrid environment. As the manager said, I'm Brett Schroetland. I'm your Grand County Sheriff. I'm in the middle of my third term serving as your sheriff, and what an honor it is. This community is truly an awesome place to serve. And I serve my best every day to serve this community in a way that truly makes a difference. And that also includes traffic safety, which we'll be discussing this evening. So as you can see to the slide to my right, this is Grand County. As we all know, Grand County is large. We're 1,850 square miles. We run about 90 miles from the top of Berthoud Pass to the top of Rabbit Ears Pass. We have 15 miles of Highway 34, about 10 miles of Highway 9 in Grand County, 134, 125, and over 780 miles of maintained county roads. Grand County is a huge place. 14,000, 15,000 year-round residents. Obviously, that number increases dramatically with our second homeowners. And then our tourism numbers obviously increase the amount of people coming through Grand County on a regular basis to a significant number that we'll talk about later this evening. My emphasis is Grand County is big. Grand County is changes. You know, we have many different seasons here in Grand County. That's what makes this such a great place. With each one of those seasons comes different types of driving behaviors, driving actions that our deputies are seeing on the road. So the Grand County Sheriff's Office, we consist of 64 full-time employees. I'm happy to say that this year we are actually more fully staffed than we've ever been. And that's thanks in part to our county and the commissioners for really funding the Sheriff's Office the way that it needs to be funded. When I speak about a full law enforcement agency, we do a lot of things. And I want to go around the badge here real quick. We're going to start in the upper right, which is call response. 24/7, 365, any emergency or non-emergency call in Grand County, we would respond to. Unincorporated areas especially, as most of the municipalities are covered by our local police departments. But that is any type of call. That could be something as complex as a search and rescue or wildland fire or an extensive sex assault, down to a basic theft, traffic violation. It really just depends, but that's the call response that we see on a regular basis. As I mentioned, search and rescue to the next of it, and investigations. We have an investigations division that conducts criminal investigations across the county, anything from extensive frauds. As you're well aware, the frauds and forgeries and stuff like that online are becoming more and more of a problem. So that takes extensive time from our staff to be able to focus on those as well. We do run a full service jail and court security division, animal control division, wildland fire response. As you're well aware, we're known for these troublesome fire. And then most recently, the Windy Gap fire. All of those things take our time and attention. I'm also statutorily mandated to provide civil process. So we serve a lot of writs and garnishments and divorce papers and sheriff sales and things like that, in addition to the regular duties that we do otherwise. And then closing up that badge is traffic enforcement, which is what we're here to talk about tonight. I'm going to be providing some numbers as far as how many traffic stops the Sheriff's Office makes this year, in addition to how many citations we've issued, and then some other stats. So community policing. Community policing really comprises of three key components. This is the one slide that I want to read this one sentence out because I think it's so important. It's actually the foundation of why we're actually here tonight. Community policing is a philosophy that promotes organizational strategies that support the systematic use of partnerships and problem-solving techniques to proactively address the immediate conditions that give rise to public safety issues such as crime, social disorder, and fear of crime. That is exactly why we're here with all of our partners today. You as a citizen are involved. This is a true core of law enforcement. It's what makes me the most proud about this community, is that we can sit down and work through issues together as professional leaders, as the community. We can have these conversations at the gas station. We can have these conversations. We can have these conversations in formal and informal environments, but it's working together to solve problems. And we do that on a daily basis, changing tires, informal community meetings, community presentations. But this is what it's about, is bringing everybody together to try to solve these. Community partnerships, the organizational transformation, and the problem solving. Obviously, the problem solving needs to be solutions based, and we hope to be able to do that with you folks tonight. Collaboration and partnerships. So first and foremost, to be a successful agency, we have to collaborate and we have to have those partnerships. All three of our commissioners and county managers are in the room. I want to thank each one of them for their dedication to public safety. That is really critical in Grand County, and our commissioners and managers really, really do support public safety all across our divisions. I see that. I'm very fortunate to deal with them on a regular basis, and they do take it very serious and help me out with that. Second is my fellow law enforcement agencies. Fraser Winter Park Police Department, Granby Police Department, Kremling Police Department, Colorado State Patrol. I meet with all those leaders and the undersheriff once a month. We problem solve. We talk about issues that are affecting our communities. We meet once a month to discuss that. And we have many, many conversations throughout the month to make sure that our vision is moving forward collectively. I can tell you, as I talk to sheriffs all across the country, that's not always the case. You don't have police chiefs and sheriffs getting along. You certainly don't always have them in the same room. We're very, very fortunate to have that here in Grand County. That extends to our EMS division, our EMS department, the fire departments, emergency management, public health, the coroner's office. We all are able to get to the table and discuss things, whether we always agree, maybe not, but we're always able to come and actually have these great conversations in our county, which I think is incredible. So that collaboration is key. Without that collaboration amongst your first response agencies, we don't have anything. The last prong of that collaboration is with you. As I mentioned, with community development or with community policing, it falls with us. We all have to work together. Sometimes we're going to disagree. Sometimes we're going to agree, but we got to be able to work together. So the sheriff's office traffic safety philosophy. First of all, it has to start with leader's intent, which is me. This 100% lies with me as your sheriff. I need to take that intent and that vision, relay that down from me to my command staff, who then relay that down to our deputies that handle all these divisions across the road. The sheriff's office leadership and I meet on a regular basis to problem solve solution-based issues. We discuss things. That's critically important, but I have to be able to have that vision and give that out to everybody as well. Education, public awareness educations, super important. Many of you are probably followers of our social media platform. I'm super proud of that platform. We have about 25,000 people that follow the sheriff's office platform on social media. As you can see, it's not always the basic stuff. It's road closures. It's talking about seatbelt usage. It's highlighting other things that are happening in our community. That is a source of outreach that we do, that we will continue to do, that I think is super, super important for our community to follow. Enforcement, targeted patrols and rapid response to traffic incident and violations. That's what we're here to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about proactive and call response policing here in a little bit. All of this has to happen based on training. We hold our deputies and staff to the highest level of training that they can do. The state has a mandate that each deputy within our office receives 24 hours of training per year. All of our staff are significantly over that, a minimum of probably 70 to 80 hours a year. Part of that is traffic enforcement, DUI enforcement, DUI detection, seatbelt usage, things like that. Personal responsibility. Everything has to start with personal responsibility. From me to everybody in this room, to everybody online, we have to have personal responsibility. Without that, none of this is going to succeed. We have to have that personal responsibility. We also have to have that personal accountability to do the right thing. How traffic enforcement relates to community safety. So obviously traffic safety. When the deputies are out on the road, making speed stops, making stops for people driving too slow, careless driving, passing, things like that, that ultimately increases the overall safety of our community. Motorist assist. You know, as I mentioned before, lots of roads, lots of conditions. Our deputies are out changing tires, pulling up behind somebody, making sure that they can get their tire changed, or sometimes they're just getting the window clear, something like that. That's a public service capacity. Traffic control. My thanks to the fire departments, EMS, CDOT, who take a majority of the traffic control roles on for us. However, our deputies do perform that function as well. Educational stops. You know, somebody driving around without their headlights on. A simple stop, quick warning, and move them on their way. Little things like that that don't result in a ticket, but are just things that just keep our safety going, our community safety going. Gateway to criminal offenses. So obviously traffic enforcement, we stop a lot of vehicles. Some of those lead to stolen vehicles. Some of them lead to tips to neighborhood break-ins, construction site break-ins, frauds and forgeries. We've had cases where we stop somebody for a traffic violation and they have 30 different IDs or 30 different debit cards or credit cards in their car. And that simple 10-minute traffic stop turns into, a multi-week investigation that's done by our investigations division. And so that is another way that it keeps our community safe. Vehicle pursuits. As you're well aware, we have a lot of vehicle pursuits here in Grand County. We take those seriously. We weigh the risk of those pursuits versus the apprehension. But I am a firm believer, and have shared that with my staff, that we do need to pursue these criminal offenders because these offenders need to be stopped. If we take the philosophy that other communities have taken, which is let these people go, all that does is it increases the crime within our communities. And we can't have that, because if that person goes on and kills somebody else or breaks into someone's house, commits a sex assault, something like that, we need to stop that at the first available level. Don't risk a life to save a minute. So obviously we're well aware of the legal consequences. We're also aware of our zero tolerance campaign. Zero tolerance for impaired driving, excessive speeds, aggressive driving, illegal passes, and road rage. All the things that we're really here to talk about tonight have a real world impact. First and foremost, this is a picture outside of Grand County, but it just highlights how slick things can be on our road and how quick things can change. But the real world impact is life or death. And the life or death that we're seeing on our roads this year is obviously higher than ever. And so we as a community need to problem solve and figure out how to move forward with that. And I don't think that solution is just enforcement. I don't think it's just education. I don't think it's just legislation. It's got to be a combination of all of those things to be able to get to where we need to be. So this is going to be a pretty mind-boggling slide for you guys, just as it was for me. So this is some CDOT traffic safety information. This is actually showing the average annual daily traffic counts across Grand County. So this does not actually necessarily show the peak dates, but it shows the average annual data for each one of those. So I'm just going to quickly highlight Highway 40 in Granby here. In 2014, had 7,900 cars a day average. In 2019, we had 9,300 cars. And in 2024, we had 11,000. As we move to the west side of the county, Highway 9, 3,800 cars in 2014, 3,900 cars in 2019, 4,600 cars a day in 2024. Super high significant numbers. And you can look at like the red dirt area where we've had a lot of discussions. 9,300, 12,000, 14,000 in 2024. Incredible numbers. And so I think as we look at the number of crashes that we continue to see, the number of fatals, we also have to look at this data as well, which is comparison that the more cars on the road, obviously that risk is going to increase as well. The next slide is just the percentage of those traffic growths for each one of those locations over the last 10 years. This data is compiled openly, so certainly available for view by the media or by any of our local partners or the public as well. But pretty significant increases. You look Highway 40, Winter Park, 67% increase. Down to the lowest, Highway 40 and Hot Sulphur at 17%. So Grand County Sheriff's Office statistics from 23, 24, and 25. The top line is our calls for service. This is how many calls that we actually respond out to. Everything from welfare checks to domestic violence to thefts, anything you can possibly think of. Some of these calls take 5 or 10 minutes. Some of these calls can take days. We've had one of these stats that could take several days on a search and rescue or a fire. So when we're working the Windy Gap fire and we're out there for 2 weeks, that counts for one of these data collections. Number of traffic stops, 2,682. Number of those that were citations were 1,274. As I mentioned before, anytime that we do traffic enforcement, it's not all about enforcement. It's not all about the ticket. It's about educational stops as well. The example that I choose to oftentimes cite is maybe a citizen calls in a possible drunk driving complaint, and we contact that driver. That driver is elderly. That driver is inexperienced and 16 years old. That is obviously not necessarily a ticket violation. It's a more of a welfare check, make sure that person is good and we move on. And so this is a very appropriate rationale for the number of citations to traffic stops. Earlier this year, we mentioned to citizens, hey, reach out to us if you see another citizen committing a traffic violation. That's another way that we can collectively work to keep the community safe. And so we do that by citizens calling into our dispatch center. As you can see, in 2023, we had 385 traffic complaints. Since we've really asked for the citizens' involvement in that, so far to date this year, 680 people have called the Grand County Dispatch Center to report other drivers' behavior. So if we can locate those cars, we'll stop them, we'll contact them. The deputy will make a decision whether or not a citation needs to be issued after a consultation with the citizen that reported it, and then we'll make a determination. My last portion of this slide is accidents. So we had 268 accidents to date here in Grand County. This does include all the municipalities as well. As you can see from 2023, that number is actually significantly down. And so I credit that to the increased visibility that the law enforcement agencies are out on the road performing this year with our zero tolerance campaign. That's also credited to the weather and a variety of different factions. But reducing that number of accidents shows that what we're doing is working. Well, unfortunately, our fatal count is higher. Our overall accident count is lower. Just a quick brief touch on the Colorado legal process. I think it's important for everybody to understand the general process. So obviously the legislation, what happens then at the Capitol and the General Assembly as they formulate and pass laws. Those laws could be traffic related, they could be criminal related, they could be civil related, whatever. We obviously focus on the traffic and criminal issues. Then law enforcement moves into the picture. It investigates crimes and makes arrests. That's the deputies that you see out on the road in our function. Once those cases are filed, they move to the prosecution, which is the district attorney's office, who reviews the cases, files the charges, and represents the state during judicial hearings. And then obviously your judicial and your courts process, which adjudicates the cases, ensures due process, issues verdicts. Those verdicts could be by a jury of your peers. They could be by a judge. But the goal is to provide everybody with that basic right of being able to contest a ticket if it was issued to you. I think I'm good to pass it off, sir.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. I'd like to invite Grand County EMS Chief Austin Wingate to the podium now.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Austin Wingate. I'm the Grand County EMS Chief. Grand County EMS, just a quick brief on us. We are a full-service EMS agency. We provide advanced life support, critical care, emergency medical services 24/7, 365 countywide. We also respond to interfacility transports. We have multiple critical access facilities in our community. When people are seriously injured or significantly ill, they need transport to tertiary care, which is usually down on the Front Range, and we provide all of that service as well. We currently have a total of about 62 staff, 47 of those who are full-time. They're extremely well-trained EMS clinicians who receive a lot of additional training in trauma care, resuscitation, extrication, and then safe transport of our sick and injured folks here in Grand County. Our role at a crash scene is to, quite simply improve survivability. And that's through rapid dispatch and response, identifying injuries, beginning that life-saving care on scene. We are far more than just a ride to the hospital. Many of the things that are available in the ER can start in the field. We also work closely with all of our partner agencies to maintain that safe work area, support those extrications, make rapid treatment transport decisions to make sure we get the right people to the right place at the right time. And we focus on that early medical intervention. And that's the thing that reduces death and long-term disability after these serious crashes. The sheriff just pointed out that we do see crashes down. Grand County, like many other areas across the state, specifically on the western slope, our crash numbers are down. That's objectively a fact. The problem that we're seeing is that our significant bodily injury and our fatalities are up. So we're running less crashes, but they're more severe. And so that means we have to change our approach to things. One of the things I just want to touch on, and Erin in the back of the room, I apologize because she can say this so much more eloquently than I can. We talk about motor vehicle crashes, which is why I have Crash Bandicoot there on the left versus calling them accidents. The vast majority of the incidents that we respond to on the road have a single determination of human error that could have prevented that. And that means it's not an accident. That means it's a crash because a behavior choice would have would have changed those. I have a few traffic statistics for us in the last 5 years. For motor vehicle crashes, Grand County EMS has responded to 1,247 of those incidents. And on 879 of them, we found at least one person who required care. Our median response time, and I do want to throw a quick disclaimer to this because median is your average. Yesterday alone, we responded to 2 incidents at the very, very top of Rabbit Ears Pass. So that skews our average a little bit. But in the last year, we averaged 5 years, 12 minutes and 56 seconds to get to the scene of a crash. And so that could be, all the way at mile marker 152 where we were twice yesterday. Or that could be right at the 215. It could be all the way out on Trough Road. Conditions on arrival, these numbers don't match the total number of responses because it's been in the last year and a half that field became mandatory for us to report on. We found 44 patients who, when we arrived on scene, were in critical condition. 132 of those required emergent intervention from our paramedics. 624 of them required care, but it was lower acuity. 34 were routine, which is really a nice way to say they needed, a nice pat on the shoulder and a little bit of help dealing with the aftermath. And then 170 that were uncategorized or other. The other thing I want to talk about here, in these are national numbers. In 2022, 40% of people who died on U.S. roadways were alive when the ambulance arrived on the scene. What we know is that coordinated county level EMS and trauma systems like we have here in Grand County, with all of our fire districts that we work very closely with the hospital, that can reduce those fatalities by 50%. We also added whole blood. We were the second service in the state of Colorado to add whole blood. You could argue that we're the third because we tied with Clear Creek County. And that has saved lives. That has unquestionably saved lives here in our community this past year. And then for that trauma care, we exceed all of our regional, state, and national benchmarks for trauma care. And we spend a lot of time training on that to do that. But here's the thing. I've got a few of my crew members in the back of the room. When it comes to our roadways, I really want them to be sitting around bored. I don't want us to be responding to these. And so that's why we take very seriously this commitment to Vision Zero and our role as an EMS service in that. And then the last piece of that is, my call to action for people is we can train as much as we want. We can have the latest and greatest tools. We can do all of the things that we can do, but we can't change physics. If you get in a crash without your seatbelt on, if you, are driving 120 like we see on these roadways, there's only so much that we can do about that. We're committed every day to making ourselves better, to improving our response times, to adding our clinical care. But we can't change physics as much as we would want to. So with that.
Okay, next I would like to introduce Grand County Coroner Tanya Bailey.
Thank you, Ed. I want to begin by thanking each and every one of you for being here tonight, for taking time out of your busy schedule to take an interest in our community. My name is Tanya Bailey. I'm your Grand County Coroner. I've been with the Coroner's Office for nearly 12 years. We have 3 full-time deputies and 3 limited on-call part-time deputies. As coroner, I meet families during the hardest moments of their lives. I witness the grief, the shock, and the sudden void that follows the loss of someone they love. The information we share today is not just data. It represents people whose life ended far too soon, and families forever changed in a single moment. From 2015 through 2025, Grand County has lost 45 people in motor vehicle accidents. These were parents, co-workers, students, and neighbors. Their absence is felt in our classrooms, our workplaces, and at family gatherings across the community. This past year, 2025, has been especially heartbreaking. We lost 12 lives. Those were all connected, those 12 were connected to motor vehicle accidents. One death resulted from a crash late in 2024, but the person actually passed away in 2025. So you might see some different numbers between state patrol and how some people calculate those. But for Grand County Coroner, we calculate that as 12 lives. When we look more closely at the 7 crashes that occurred in 2025, so I just want to clarify this. We're talking 12 deaths, 7 crashes. The picture becomes even clearer. One death involved an at-fault bicyclist, leaving 6 motor vehicle crashes, resulting in 10 deaths. 2 of those 6 crashes involved drivers suspected of marijuana or alcohol impairment. And one additional case is still pending the results of impairment. 6 of the 10 remaining individuals who died in motor vehicle crashes were not wearing seatbelts. And one additional case was undetermined if they were in fact wearing a seatbelt or not. I want to say this again because this is really important. 6 of the 10 remaining people were not wearing their seatbelt. These details matter because they reveal a difficult truth. Many of these fatalities may have been prevented if only a seatbelt had been worn. Seatbelt use has been a decisive factor in survival. From 2015 through 2019, 7 unbelted individuals lost their lives. In 2025 alone, over half of the victims, 6 people, were not wearing seatbelts. One simple action, buckling up, can be the difference between life and death. This is coming from your Grand County Coroner's Office. Seatbelts could have saved many of these lives. We see similar trends with impairment. While the circumstances of each incident differ, the contributing factors are tragically familiar. Impaired driving, distraction, speeding, and fatigue. Impairment is also sleepiness and fatigue. So impairment does not always mean it's a substance. These are choices, and choices that send shockwaves through families and through our entire community. And because they are choices, you have the power to change them. Today, we honor 45 individuals we have lost over the past decade. Put this in a little perspective. I want you all to just look around and think. 45. That easily could be everybody sitting in those seats right now, gone to motor vehicle accidents. Their futures were cut short, and those who loved them now carry the weight of their absence every day. As a community, we can prevent more families from experiencing this kind of loss. As the Grand County Coroner, I ask each and every one of you to commit to safer decisions. Buckle up every time. It doesn't matter if you're just going to the post office or to City Market. Buckle up. Seatbelts save lives. Drive sober and alert. Alcohol, marijuana, and fatigue impair your judgment and slow your reaction times. And trust me, we've all lived here long enough. When it's really bad weather out there, even at our best, it takes every ounce we have of every bit of us to drive those roads some days. So drive sober and alert. Avoid distractions. Phones and multitaskings can wait. Your life can't. That person on the phone will be there when you stop in 15 minutes or half an hour. Don't take the call. Don't do the text because you might never get to do another one. Just don't do it. Obey the law and look out for one another. Responsible choices protect everybody on the road. These actions may seem really small, but they carry tremendous power. They can save a life. They can keep a family whole. They can change the story of our community. We are all here today because we have lost so much of our community this year. Together, we can reduce preventable tragedies. Together, we can protect the people who make Grand County grand. I'm asking for all of you to commit to these simple steps and save lives. There are a lot of crashes. There's a lot of wrecks, crashes, incidents. Depends on which department you are, of what you label them. But just know from a coroner's standpoint, most of those deaths, a large portion of those deaths, would have been prevented if only the people would have buckled up. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank
Okay, next I would like to invite or introduce Grand County Commissioner Randy George.
Sorry. My boss. One of them.
Yeah, one of them. And I would like to ask Merritt Linke to stand up and Ed Ragnar to stand up. They're the other two county commissioners. You have many more people to speak tonight and a lot of questions, so I won't say much more other than the fact that as commissioners, we are very supportive of those county agencies that are responsible for some of the prevention work and the first responders work. And you've heard from the sheriff and EMS and from the coroner, and we have a number of people here with the fire departments, and all of those are the folks that show up on site. It's heart-wrenching to see what they see and to go through what they go through. And we want to minimize the experiences that they have. And just as Austin was saying, he would really like his EMS crews to be bored, right? And we would too, but we want to fund them so that they're ready to go with each almost $500,000 ambulance that has to go out and those sorts of things. And just last week, we approved a couple more signs. These signs that go on the side of the road that can have changing messages to help to try to improve the education and improve the emphasis that we're putting on this zero tolerance, that we don't want to see speeders, we don't want to see reckless driving and all of that. So I will say thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, anything about the county commissioners and the county in general, please feel free to talk to Ed or Merritt.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, I would like to introduce Mayor Brian Cervenik, and he's also the chair of the Northwest Colorado Transportation Planning Region. Mayor.
Hi, everyone. I don't have any slides either. I just wanted to come up and explain a little bit about what I do. Obviously, Mayor Frazier is pretty self-explanatory, but the Northwest Transportation Planning Region helps CDOT prioritize where to spend their money. So the Red Dirt Hill project that phase 1 is now completed, that was in the queue probably a decade ago and finally got funded. And so phase 2 will start next year. Again, that's funded, which is great. We have a project that's going to expand the road through the town of Fraser, make it 4 lanes to County Road 5 probably, over 2 or 3 phases with that. But this county didn't see a lot of these projects for a really long time. And so that's why I got on this committee to put a little more focus on Grand County. I also own Home James Transportation, and I hear on a weekly basis, maybe daily in the winter, of drivers passing our vans on double yellow lines and, people just flying by them. And I think it's time that we start looking at ways to not only enforce the rules of the road, but also educate people on why they need to slow down and why they need to obey these double yellows and that kind of thing. So I'm here to answer any questions if you have any, but that's all I have.
Brian, do you want to just take a minute and explain how the TPR process works real quick and like who's a part of it?
Yeah.
It's on the spot, but
Yeah.
I think that'd be helpful.
So I think there are 13 TPRs. There's either 13 TPRs. I think there's 13 regions that they've broken the state into. And we're essentially all fighting for CDOT's dollars. And obviously everyone knows CDOT does not have enough money. So we have a list of probably, 60 projects that we'd love to see funded within the 5 counties of the Northwest TPR, which is Grand, Route, Rio Blanco, Moffett, and Jackson. Route got a lot of those projects for a long time, and now we're starting to see them on our side. But we can't ignore the even more rural, the more western and northern counties as well. So it's a difficult process for us to advocate for the projects that we want, but also understand that everybody's in need. So it's a hard thing to do, but I'm fighting for Grand County at this point. Any other questions?
Just maybe it would be good to point out that TPRs are for capital construction projects, doesn't have anything to do with maintenance, which is a separate problem.
That is true. Yeah, this is all the big projects, all the things that the Floyd Hills, of the state, and the Red Dirt Hills, that kind of thing. It's big capital projects that are, tens and tens of millions of dollars. So that's mainly what it is. But the nice side piece of that, of course, is that I get to know people at CDOT, and I can talk about maintenance. And the reason Berthoud Pass got paved is because we flooded the call lines 2 years ago and said this is unacceptable, and we magically got $19 million to get that done. So these kind of community uprisings, for lack of a better word, do help and do point people in the right direction to where funding needs to be placed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next, I would like to introduce Mr. Rick Ritter. He's our Northwest District 6 Transportation Commissioner.
Thank you very much. I appreciate having the opportunity to talk, speak. First of all, the mayor, as he just laid out, has been an extraordinary advocate for not just his patch in Grand County, but actually for the entire Northwest area. And I am thrilled to be working with him on trying to, shall we say, enhance much of the roadways that bisect Northwest Colorado. And to that end, US 40 is always at the top of the list. No matter how much we try, we're always going to be somewhat more than somewhat, significantly underfunded in all the projects that need to be done on US 40. We do recognize 2 things. One is that safety has got to come first, and that 2, that we are getting, a tremendous amount of growth, and that is putting a great strain on our roads and highways. And so I guess thirdly is one of the things that we're absolutely looking at in Winter Park and Fraser and Granby and hopefully Kremling will be the beneficiary of that, which is to get people off the road and onto some cases a rail to Denver and through the county. With that, I'm here to listen, and so far it has been extremely illuminating. The average daily traffic count. I have written down, saved the slide, and plan to use it as a demonstration of why we need more money in Northwest Colorado to achieve many of the goals that have been sort of outlined here in terms of safety, but also the ability for everybody to move with some degree of safety and ease through the county and through Northwest Colorado. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ritter. All right, next, I would like to introduce Karen Bertollet as well as Zeb White with the Colorado Department of Transportation, and they're online. And then Jose Martinez is here in person, and he'll round up the next presentation. So, Karen.
Good evening. My name is Karen Bertollet. I'm with CDOT, and I'm the program engineer for this area. First, want to start off by saying thanks for having us here today. We're really proud to be here today with this group to focus on safety in partnership with Grand County stakeholders and officials. As Grand County continues to evolve and prosper, we're committed to continuing to collaborate to improve communities and roadways to get everyone safely to their final destination. Based on the questions that were submitted, our presentation is going to be a little bit more robust and longer than others, but I'm hoping to get through a lot of themes that we saw in the questions for things like speed limits and Red Dirt Hill specifically, better understanding the scope. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our slides.
And just yell at me when you want me to advance them, Karen.
Advance 2, please.
Next one.
You can go to the next one, actually. Great, thank you. CDOT's primary goal is to set realistic speed limits that maximize safety and ensure motorist compliance. The process is governed by state statute, federal guidelines, and engineering standards, and we look at things like roadway environment, like lane widths, curves, sight distance, pedestrian and bicyclist activity, geographical type, crash data, and operating speeds. One thing we found is setting limits too low can actually decrease safety, as studies show most drivers drive speeds they feel comfortable with. So one of the biggest challenges can be if one person tends to drive slower, another person tends to drive faster, that can be more of a safety issue almost than everyone driving where they feel comfortable. So realistic speed limits protect the public by reducing potential conflicts. They move traffic efficiently and provide a clear basis for enforcement against dangerously excessive speeds. Effective enforcement, like we've talked about tonight, is essential to ensure compliance and support the safety goals of the speed limits. So we did receive quite a few questions about inconsistent speeds. So you can go to the next slide. Reducing speeds and information on wildlife migration zones. So we wanted to go ahead and tackle now. One question was asked, how do we reduce speeds? We typically will reevaluate speeds when something has changed. If, for example, there's a new construction that makes people want to drive slower, Grand County can request a new speed study. A speed study was conducted on Red Dirt Hill in 2023, and that did lower the speed limit from 65 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour. Historically, speed limits were set based on the prevailing speed, the 85th percentile of the speeds that people had traveled. Now we take more into account like the context of the area to really make sure we're choosing the right speed that fits the environment. In response to the question of why inconsistent speeds, Speeds are set based on the context of the road. So, someone asked, why is it different from Winter Park all the way to Granby? Well, if you think about it, what the road looks like as you drive through those sections, you're going through some urbanized sections of road and you're going through rural sections of road. If each of us had no speed limits and just drove those sections, the speed we felt comfortable, we would have different speeds as well. And so we match the speed limit to what would feel close to comfortable for those environments. Someone asked for more information on when we add signs for wildlife migration zones. Signage is tricky. What we found is that to make it the most effective, we can't overload signs or they become ineffective. So we really need to find ways that people notice the signs when they're there. Recently, we realized that we might have had too many wildlife zone signs and they really weren't changing driver behavior as they went through those areas. We also had them in areas where maybe it's only a couple months a year during migration periods where wildlife hits might be an issue. So rather than have a standard sign that's there all year round, maybe there's too many signs along the drive, instead we try to bring focus to those areas at certain times of migration and try to use things like the temporary digital signs that we'll put in an area, and then the driver will notice, okay, something's different. The temporary sign is there. Something has changed and I need to slow down and pay more attention right now versus, if we see a deer sign too often along the roadway, we may not change our driver behavior. You can go to the next slide after that. I'm going to jump into some of our projects. So I first want to share and highlight just how much things we have been able to make some great improvements in Grand County in recent years. And certainly with the partners who already spoke today, I've gotten to know everyone really well, and we're really trying to identify the most effective projects in Grand County. But we've spent around $40 million in Grand County in the last 3 years alone, and I expect to spend another 40 years in the next 5 years. So CDOT is making investments in Grand County. That money is coming from resurfacing and paving projects in which we always look at safety improvements in those areas. It's come from safety specific projects like Red Dirt Hill. It's coming from operations efficiency projects like the Fraser project that Mayor Circumventic talked about earlier. So a wide variety of projects that's bringing a lot of improvements to Grand County. So I'll dive in first to Red Dirt Hill, and I have a few more slides on this in particular, but just to highlight, like was mentioned, phase 1, which is County Road 52 to County Road 88, that was completed last year, and that was around $7 million. And then the next project is in our proposed draft 10-year plan. We think at the soonest it would be built in 2027, and that is from County Road 88 to the Meadows Road. So that one's estimated to be closer to 17 million. Some other projects, again, I'm going to dive into that one in more detail because I know there's a lot of comments on that project in particular. Some other projects I wanted to highlight that we've done in recent years, like Mayor Circumventic mentioned, we did pave Berthoud Pass. We also just paved a little section from Berthoud Pass into Winter Park. We're working with Winter Park itself downtown right now about paving that section, but we're collaborating through their planned streetscape work. We are going to pave north of Fraser. I think it's about 4.5 miles next year in 2026. And then we are planning for more paving in the future from Granby to Tabernash. Some other projects to highlight is we did construct passing lanes for about 1 mile, also in Grand County. And then, like was mentioned, we are working on a larger improvement project in Fraser. And then we're looking at a bridge. We already started design for a bridge replacement just south of Kremling on Highway 9. And then we are looking at safety improvements on Highway 40 just west of Kremling, and that has some safety funding. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. That's perfect. So one thing I want to highlight here, and I have a lot of data on the next few slides, but just that we have been working on Red Dirt Hill for a while. We've been working closely with Grand County on a noted increase in crashes since 2020. Grand County helped fund the initial feasibility study that was completed in 2022 to identify some work, the safety improvements that were needed and analyze the types of crashes we were having in that area. We then completed a quick action project in 2022 to restripe 2 key left turn areas that were kind of like low hanging fruit. How do we reduce crashes in those areas for things that were easily completed? Then we dived into the Red Dirt Hill Phase 1, which, as I mentioned, was constructed last year, and we're working right now on the design of Phase 2. You can go to the next slide. So diving into really focusing on it. I think most of you in this room, I'm sure, know it even more than we do because you drive it every day. But we know there's steep slopes at 5 to 6.5% grade, which is quite steep. Normally, even an interstate, ideally, you wouldn't design over 5%. It was at a 65-mile-an-hour speed limit, which we talked about was reduced. And we have seen the increase in crashes, which really brought our attention to this area. We did see a pattern of crashes eastbound on the eastbound approach and uphill climb where the eastbound climbing lane is located. And then we saw a pattern of westbound crashes where the westbound climbing lane is located. So as part of our initial study, our team developed some very specific improvements based on the types of crashes we were seeing. Again, I'm not going to read through this whole table, but we did dive into this. I wanted to show the detail that was provided of, based on the types of crashes, what type of improvements we should complete. And they included rumble strips, standardizing A-cell, D-cell lanes, extending the westbound climbing lane, adjusting the beginning of the eastbound climbing lane, having more consistent shoulders, adding the eastbound guardrail in certain sections where we saw crash patterns, and then lighting at an intersection. You can go to the next slide. These are my last few. So I do wanted to highlight again and just share the Red Dirt Hill project benefits. We are adding 8-foot paved shoulders consistently on the rural 2 lanes. We did adjust the beginning of the eastbound climbing lane because of the interaction with County Road 52. And we more formally dropped the left lane at the top of the climbing lane. We also added new striping and signing, new pavement. We improved all the guardrail to bring it up to standard. We added some concrete guardrail next to a cut slope and provided some rockfall catchment. We streamlined accesses with the removal of and we also removed an access with one of the County Road 53 access, which had poor sight distance, and we removed some hazard trees in the clear zone. In Phase 2 will be pretty similar types of scope, adding the 8-foot shoulders, adding some right turn D-cell, A-cell, and D-cell lanes on the intersections. You can see, I think you switched to the Phase 2 slide. Add the new guardrail for widening at various other locations, closing County Road 86 west access, adding the left turn lane eastbound to County Road 86, adding the left turn lane eastbound to Winter Park Highlands Drive, adding the right turn D-cell westbound to Winter Park Highlands Drive, and then new pavement striping and some super elevation corrections. Again, this Red Dirt Hill Phase 2 project we're estimating to be around $17 million. We can go to that next slide, which I think turns it over to Zeb.
Yeah, thank you. Could you go ahead and go to the next slide, please? So I'm going to talk about just the fatal crashes. We do consider all crashes when we're looking at this stuff, but with the fatal crashes, one of the questions we have was, how does Grand County compare to the other counties? So on the left, you can see the list. The first number is the number of fatal crashes. What's in parentheses is the number of fatalities. And as you can see, Grand County is kind of in the lower portion of the rest of these counties. This isn't all of the counties in the state of Colorado. This is just kind of a zone around Grand County. On the right half of this slide, we can see the fatalities for all of Colorado as of, that would be December 3rd. And we do see a downward trend in the fatalities, which is good news. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that in Grand County. Next slide, please. So I want to touch on kind of how we get our crash data. So it starts with the local law enforcement and the Colorado State Patrol. It then goes through the Department of Revenue, and they do some cleaning up of the data. They kind of make sure that nothing's redundant, nothing's missing, and then it gets passed along to CDOT. So far, we've only gotten the first half of 2025 crashes through that process. We do have information on the fatal crashes that have happened after July, but it's not in the crash data system that we have. of those fatalities in 2025, we have 7 crashes and 11 fatalities, unfortunately. Some of the factors involved in those crashes are the conditions of both the road and kind of the weather. They kind of get separated, but they both are a factor. Driver inexperience is another factor, and the lack of seatbelt use is another factor. Next slide, please. So typically when we look at crash data, we look at a 5-year period. And since I didn't have all of 2025 crash data, I looked from 2020 to 2024, and then we could compare that to what we're seeing in 2025. So the previous 5 years, we had 8 crashes and 9 fatalities. 7 of the 8 crashes were a head-on or a head-on style crash. And factors involved in those crashes were the conditions. There was an impairment crash, speeding or passing, and also unknown seatbelt usage or no helmet use in one of the motorcycle crashes. In the 2025 crash data, we have 7 crashes, 11 fatalities. 5 of the 7 crashes were a head-on style crash, and they also have similar factors. In the seatbelt category, there were 3 occupants in the crash data that I had that were unknown. So I did not say that they did not have their seatbelt on. I'm just putting that as unknown. Unfortunately, we do have almost as many fatal crashes in 2025 as we've had in the last 5 years. So hopefully today we can make some changes to get that trend going in the opposite direction. Next slide, please. So this might be a little hard to see if it's small, but we do categorize our roads into levels of service of safety. There's levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this gives us a frame of reference of how our road is performing from a safety standpoint. We try and focus on the levels 3 and 4 because that gives us the most opportunity to improve safety. So those are the yellow and red portions of road, and then the levels 1 and 2 are the green and blue portions of road. Also included in this visual are some of the projects that we've done, some of the different areas so that you guys are kind of familiar, and the fatal crashes from 2025. Next slide, please. This is just the kind of the other portion of Grand County where, again, we've gone over a bunch of the different projects that we've done, and this kind of shows where the fatalities are happening relative to those. Some of our projects have been very close to fatal crashes, yet unfortunately, crashes still happen. Others, hopefully we've made improvements that will reduce the number of fatal crashes. And that, I believe, wraps up this section, and I'll pass it along.
Do you want me to advance these or?
Yeah, I can do it. All right, so my name is Jose Martinez. I'm the CDOT supervisor. I oversee all maintenance operations in both Jackson County and Grand County. So here's some of the questions that kind of came in related to maintenance. One of them was sanding Fraser Flats and Granby Flats. We typically follow de-icing agents and sanding materials. We put it down based on manufacturer guidelines. We also follow CDOT standard operating procedures. And every section of the highway has a winter operations plan, so we try to follow. It's what we use to train our new hires, which at this time of year, we have quite a bit of them. You know, it's just kind of a slow process, but we're making, you know, it's looking good so far. You know, as far as potholes, it's something that I believe it's been a huge topic in the county, and I believe that we've made a lot of progress. Obviously, we're not all the way there yet. We're not perfect, but there's different materials that we're trying. We're using aquafalt, which tends to stay a little longer. Some of the problem areas that had, you know, massive potholes throughout the section, we paved them. You know, we prioritize the summer. We pave the critical area. So I'm hoping that kind of helps us out and kind of, you know, keep our heads above water for now. And yeah, and any during any storms, if we have any, once we follow our winter operations plans, any additional materials can be requested by law enforcement, and we try to be very responsive to that. So, something that we're working with. And then we kind of cover Section 6. The one thing I did want to touch on is the winter operations down there at the quick response team. So this is a team that we put together out of Section 6. We took our equipment operators from the whole section, mostly out of Craig. We bring them over. So they were here for this last storm, the one that came in on Saturday. We were expecting a lot more. We still got significant snow, but so what they do is they come down here and then they do a lot of avalanche mitigation throughout the night. So we maintain the storm in the daytime, especially on Berthoud Pass. And they come in the evenings. That we use the snow blowers, they use loaders equipment, and they work overnight after the storm is gone. They blow the banks. So what they do by blowing the banks, that sort of mitigates. It kind of makes the snow come down in a controlled environment versus, in the middle of the day when all the traffic's out and about. So that's a cool thing is this is going to be the third winter going into it, and every winter that we've gone into it, it's just gotten better. And I actually feel a lot more confident this year that we're going to have better results, with that. So I'm sure you guys will see it, and yeah, that's really all I got.
What's the material that you're using that's new that you hope will last longer?
For potholes, it's called Aquafault. So it comes in a bucket. It's like an oil-based kind of thing, and then we put it in there. We add water to it, and the good thing about that, it activates with water. So it's not permanent, obviously, but it tends to stay longer than cold mix, which is what we use, prior. It's a lot more expensive, but I believe it'll kind of buy us some time, and till we get to the next phase of paving. So, but yeah.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next online, I would like to introduce Speaker of the House, Julie McCluskey.
Hello, delighted to see everyone tonight. Wish I could be there in person. And I want to start by thanking Sheriff and the Sheriff's team, the county commissioners, the coroner, Chief Wingate, the many presenters that have just spoken from CDOT, and certainly Rick Ritter as the transportation commissioner. It is so important that we have opportunities like this one, both to share critical safety and emergency information, plans about how to mitigate danger on our roads. But more importantly, it's critical that we take the time to hear from our constituents, members of our community, and better understand the concerns that you are living and experiencing every day. My heart goes out to the families, the friends, the entire community that has experienced so much loss as of recently. And there is nothing more important than maintaining safe roadways, making sure that we are doing everything we can at the state level to ensure that all of us can get from here to there safely every time we are out and about. So thank you for including me this evening. I'm really here to listen and learn, see how the state can step in and be a good partner to these many local leaders who have talked tonight. And again, I commend everyone in Grand County, those participating and those that have expressed their concern and asked for change. Thank you for sharing your voice.
Thank you, Speaker McCluskey. Next, I'd like to introduce Senator Dylan Roberts.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to join tonight, and also my apologies for not being there in person. I wish I could be in the room with everybody. Had a different event in Glenwood Springs tonight, so glad that we can join virtually. And I share, it's an honor to represent Grand County and all of you down at the Capitol and the State Senate, and to work alongside Speaker McCluskey to serve Grand County. And serving your transportation needs and your public safety needs has been a priority for us, and we want it to continue to be. I'm heartbroken and very concerned about all of the tragedy that's happened on the roadways in Grand County over the course of this past year and previously, as your coroner noted. It is a dangerous situation, and things need to change. And so I'm very grateful that this forum is being held tonight, and thanks to the sheriff and Chief Wingate and the commissioners and the entire county staff and other entities that made this possible. I drive, just like the speaker, drive Highway 40 frequently and Highway 9 frequently. My district includes Summit, Grand, Route, Jackson, and many other counties. And so I traverse these roads personally and share your concern and frustration and pain about both the conditions of the roads and some of the driving behavior that we see. Commissioner Ritter touched on, and the CDOT folks touched on some of the maintenance and projects that are going on. We will continue to support those as best we can at the Capitol. On the safety side, though, I am grateful for Chief Wingate for reaching out to me a few months ago regarding some of these terrible crashes. And I am engaging on working on a piece of legislation with him and your sheriff and other members of law enforcement across the state regarding increasing penalties for illegal passing on double yellow lines or other types of illegal passing, as well as potentially instituting what's known as a super speeder law, one that escalates penalties the more frequently that someone accrues speeding violations, to try to get at the folks who don't heed the warning the first time they get a speeding ticket and continue to abuse the privilege of driving on our roadways. That bill also will include assistance or direction to CDOT to put up more signage about where passing lanes exist, so that people can know that they'll have that opportunity to pass and not make a foolish decision. And we are also looking at a special surcharge for some of these, for those two types of violations, that would direct monies directly to EMS providers who have to deal with the fallout of these crashes. This bill is still in drafting phase. We don't start the legislative session until mid-January, but I hope to work with many of you in that room and here online to get this passed. I believe strongly in this. I think it could make a difference to really increase the penalties for illegal passing and excessive speeding and repeated violations there. So hope to have more updates for you as the legislative session goes on. Never hesitate to reach out. Your Chief Wingate and your sheriff and your commissioners do an excellent job talking to us throughout the legislative session, and we'll stay in touch with them on this bill. But I want to do something. I think we can get this bill passed and honor the victims of these terrible crashes with doing something good out of it and changing the law to prevent it from happening again. So thanks again for having me tonight.
Okay, thank you, Senator Roberts. I appreciate your comments. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Julie Suter with Congressman Negus's office. Julie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having our office and participating in this important event. Thanks so much to Sheriff Schrotlin and the Board of County Commissioners and the coroner and all the county staff for organizing this important discussion, not just tonight, but certainly ongoing as we look to address some of these major challenges that we've seen in Grand County. Like Senator Roberts and Speaker McCluskey, I also crisscross the highways throughout Northwest Colorado, through our mountains. And so as a team for the congressman, we're certainly very aware of the challenges that we face, the challenges that CDOT faces as they work to maintain so many thousands of miles of highway. And I also, on behalf of Congressman Negus, I'd like to extend his condolences and the condolences of our whole team to the loved ones who of those that we have lost recently. We know that in our smaller mountain communities, of which I am a resident too, down in Summit County, that when we lose one of our neighbors or loved ones, that it really is felt so deeply and ripples throughout the whole community. And certainly that extends to all of our tireless first responders as well. So our sheriff's deputies, our police officers, all of Chief Wingate's staff at the EMS services, our fire districts, the folks in our emergency departments at Middle Park Health, and our folks in the coroner's office. So these impacts are just so widely felt. And so the congressman extends his deep condolences to the whole community. Regarding action to address some of these issues, the congressman has always been a strong supporter of transportation infrastructure funding and transportation safety funding. He was a very strong advocate for inclusion of federal dollars in the bipartisan infrastructure law, through which we were able to steer a lot of resources in Colorado 2nd District. Unfortunately, we've seen some of that clawed back, but the congressman continues to fight to see those dollars make their way to Colorado to every extent that he can. The congressman has also worked on a more localized level through the Community Project Funding Program. This is where he's able to identify individual projects that communities propose to our office. And so throughout the 2nd District, he has been able to allocate millions of dollars for local transportation safety improvements, for resources for law enforcement agencies to better and more efficiently perform their duties, to increase pedestrian and cyclist safety resources within our communities. And so those community project funds can sometimes feel like an uphill battle, but we work closely with sheriffs and county commissioners and mayors and EMS partners throughout the district on finding the best proposals that we can and where they can have the most impact. One of the another issue that the congressman is very supportive of is passenger rail, which I think some of our folks at CDOT mentioned that we'd like to see the mountain rail move forward so that eventually folks can ride mountain rail all the way from the Front Range out to Craig, and give people the option to get off of our roadways altogether, but still make their way from one community to the next in Colorado. And then the last initiative of the congressman's that I'll mention is the Magnus White Cyclist Safety Act, of which he's the sponsor. He was the original sponsor of this legislation in the 118th Congress, and he reintroduced it in May 2025. In the 119th Congress. And so this legislation would require the U.S. Department of Transportation to issue a rule that would require automatic emergency braking systems on all new vehicles that have the capability to detect pedestrians and cyclists. And so these automatic emergency braking systems can detect a pedestrian or a cyclist and then prompt the vehicle to brake before a collision occurs. So this legislation is named after Magnus White, who was a constituent of ours in Colorado 2nd District, who was 17 when he lost his life in a vehicle collision. He was an elite cyclist on the junior U.S. national team, and so it was a tragic loss. And so the congressman has been working with Magnus's parents to advocate for these safety improvements in vehicles. And with that, I will pass it on to the next. Thanks so much again for having us.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate your comments and the work you guys are doing there. Next, I would like to pass this on to Ms. Delaney Deskin. She's with Senator Bennett's office. Delaney.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and to echo a lot of the points made by fellow electeds and liaisons tonight. Thank you all for putting on such a terrific event, especially Sheriff Stroutland and Chief Wingate, Coroner Bailey, everyone at the County Commission, as well as the county government. Really appreciate the work that you all are doing to meet the moment and make sure that our communities are safer. And to also echo the earlier points, I also frequently drive in Grand County, was there last week. And thank you so much to the elected officials who, due to changing road conditions, I had to cancel a couple of meetings on Friday. So thank you all for your understanding and flexibility. Out of respect for a lot of folks' time, I'll make sure to not be too redundant here, but we want to make sure on behalf of the senator that we are giving Grand County and all the municipalities in the county as many tools as possible to combat this current sort of what's been happening this year in terms of traffic safety patterns, as well as make sure that communities are safer and more resilient in the long term. Similarly to Julie's point, the senator has been a strong supporter of Mountain Rail, and we're excited to see that project continue on, and really excited and looking forward to working with state, local, and federal partners to continue expansion of that. Similarly, there's a process within the Senate side that's kind of similar to CPF or community project funding, because it's Senate and Congress. Of course, it can't be the same name or the exact same thing, because that would just be too easy. For us, it's called Congressional Direct Spending, or CDS. If you are any sort of special district, local government, county government agency, hospital, anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me. I can put my email in the comments, and we can always have a discussion about what different projects could look like and where federal funding can go fit in the picture there. That process begins around the beginning of the calendar year. So early next month is a great time to reach out to me, and we can sort of talk about that. We maintain a joint resource page and FAQs section with Senator Hickenlooper that talks about what the CDS process is, what it is not, as well as has an extensive list of examples from previous years. I always like to, as folks, to remind folks, as many of you may know, the congressional funding process is famously unpredictable, as we've all seen earlier this year. So bearing that in mind, that can impact CDS process, but that doesn't stop us from making sure we're setting all of our projects up in Colorado for success. Beyond that, we want to make sure that other federal resources and other pathways to draw down federal dollars are available to you all. I think the two biggest ones within this context that I want to highlight are the Safe Streets for All grant program. The application process for fiscal year 25 closed recently, and I know the county did submit an application there. Our team is working closely with our policy team out in DC, as well as folks at Federal Department of Transportation, CDOT, everything like that, to make sure that we remain in close contact regarding that round of Safe Street for All grants. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure when the next round of applications for that grant program will be. But the other program, BUILD, which stands for Better Utilizing Investments to Leverage Development, that grant program, the notice of funding opportunity recently went out last week or the week before. So it is open. It is another surface transportation funding pathway. For federal grants, please feel free to reach out to myself. The senator maintains a pretty robust grants program, and we want to make sure that you all are seeing excellent use of your tax dollars at work on the ground for our communities. For that, we're able to provide resources and talk through grant application process, what makes a successful grant application, as well as alluding to what Julie mentioned earlier, when there's uncertainty around grant clawbacks or changing requirements, anything like that, we're able to answer questions. So all of this is a really long way of saying, if there is a federal funding opportunity you are interested in, please feel free to see myself as a good first stop for the senator's office. And we're able to really make sure that we're leveraging those dollars that you all pay into the system and make sure it works best for the county. Beyond that, please feel free in terms of anything coming into the federal government, any information, questions, concerns. Our job is to make sure that we're your guys' eyes and ears, and we're making sure we're elevating your concerns and your questions to the senator. So like I said, my email will always be there, and I'm always happy to maintain close contact. And thank you all for putting on such a terrific event today.
Thank you, Delaney. Appreciate the comments. Hopefully you can have the senator pull some strings for us on this Safe Streets for All. I think we're a very competitive application, and we should be awarded that grant. Just a
I'll talk
plug.
to our transportation team, but
Okay.
yeah, thank you, you guys for submitting an application as well.
All right, thank you. Moving on, I would like to introduce Mr. Derek Durst. He's a community member and also a member of the Highway 40 Safety Coalition.
Thank you, sir.
Derek.
Hi, I'll do my best to be brief. It's been a long night and we still have questions. I am not the leader of anything. What a coalition is a group of people that get together out of whatever and tries to come up with solutions. I've been in this county now for 6 years. I love many of you. I know many of you. I know your families. And I've over and over again, my heart is broken. Driving in traffic, seeing accidents, hearing of people that have been hurt, experiencing the loss. And as I talked to people when I was looking for ways that I, as a community member, could be effective, coalitions kept coming up, and other communities have had these coalitions. This is an opportunity that we can get together and we can share our voices, we can share our stories, we can share data, and we can communicate with our leaders. And when we gather together as a community and we share our voices, our shared voices, we can authorize our leaders to go get funding and to go get tools and to reach out to our senators. And we have power in our combined voices. And I just really encourage all of you. We have a Facebook group. We met last Saturday. We authorized a Facebook group to meet. We've got an email group that we can start sharing documents. We can start sharing stories. We can really create together, y'all. Like, there's a real opportunity here. Often, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever tragedy historically has created opportunities for real systemic change. And we have an opportunity, my friends. And to the leaders in this room, I would offer you to take your hats off, to take your leadership's hats off, and come join us in a community discussion. You know, I was talking to Brett, and Brett had the experience that anytime Brett steps into a room, he's our sheriff, and he is. And I honor you, sir, and I'm grateful for the work that you do for our community. All of you. I mean, talk about a group of people. I'm so proud to be a member of this community and see the tools that we have. 12 minutes for EMS dispatch. Wow. I had no clue. That's impressive. So there's an opportunity for you all to step into this conversation as a community member with curiosity and a nonpartisan environment. And let's have a discussion. Let's hold some sacred space. Let's hold our community grief and create out of this event. And I'm just grateful for all of you for showing up this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Chief White. We're going to go through some of those questions that we talked about that were assembled earlier. And then what we're going to do, I know we're running behind time. I think we'll go through those first 10 or 12 questions, and then we'll have until about 8:50, and then we're going to open it up to the floor for last 10 minutes and then wrap it up. Sound good? Okay, Chief White.
Okay. Just for the record, there's a lot more diamond plate out in the bay than EMS has. There's no such thing as a board firefighter. Okay. So we broke some of the questions that were submitted early into a couple of sections here. And so the first one is enforcement and fines, which I think is primarily going to be response from Sheriff's Office and CDOT. The first one is immediate enforcement. What specific action will the Sheriff's Office take right now to stop the worst drivers, like hiring more deputies, surge patrols, speed cameras, etc.? Sheriff, or you want to? I assume you need to be near the mic.
Yeah. We'll have to kind of move back and forth up here to answer these questions, just so we hit everybody online as well. So the first question is obviously, what are we going to do right away? And I think that over the last couple months, we've obviously increased traffic enforcement just based on what's going on. Hopefully you're seeing that visibility out there. Our patrol commander, Lieutenant Urich, has redirected his staff. So we now have a little bit difference in our shifts. So we actually have a couple deputies coming on midday to kind of perform more of a swing shift. We are actually higher number of patrol deputies than we ever have been. But by realigning those people on different parts of the day, it better meets our call ratio there. One of the things that we do have to navigate is obviously the call response on one side, and then what we're able to do on the proactive side on the other side with traffic enforcement. And that has to be in pretty equal teeter-totter to make that happen. And so by him shifting around his people, it hits the prime areas of the day that we're able to show our statistics driven is when these violations are occurring. And so we will have additional deputies on the road during those prime times. I discussed it at a later slide. We are also, as I mentioned, we have 64 employees at the sheriff's office. That fits all sorts of different divisions, from dispatch to animal control to investigations to the jail to courts. We are actually taking 2 of those positions from other parts of the sheriff's office and moving them in 26 into the patrol division. Obviously, the patrol division is facing an increased number of calls, increased number of traffic right now. And so we need to reallocate those resources where they are. That is not an additional cost to the county. It is merely a restructuring of staff to best fit the needs at the time. Obviously, things have greatly slowed down in our jails just with some of the legislation that's happening. You probably recognize that our jail counts are a lot lower than they used to be. So by reallocating some staff, we're actually moving some staff around to fit that best standard. So having additional staff out there on the roads, having them visible, those are some immediate actions that we're taking right away.
Okay, if you'd stay there. For the sake of time, I'm going to tackle all the law
Perfect.
enforcement stuff first. So slow drivers. How will police enforce the law against very slow drivers who cause traffic jams and lead to reckless passing? And I'll add, because I know there's a question just came in, is there any current or proposed law dealing with slow drivers that don't pull over?
So as our deputies are patrolling across the county, they're not looking for one specific violation. They're looking for all sorts of violations, whether it be speed, excessive speed, slow speeds, weaving, stop signs, all sorts of different driving behaviors that we all see on the road. We're looking for a hodgepodge of all those sorts of types of behaviors. All of those things result in stops. Our deputies are out there all the time making those stops for those things. There is a law that talks about impeding traffic. And so if you are driving at a speed that is too low and you are impeding the flow of traffic behind you, it is a violation. There is a clause to that talks about if that person is basically driving in a safe precaution for the speeds and conditions of the road, then that would be allowed. So sometimes we run into that up here in Grand County where the roads are slick, the roads are nasty, people are driving slower. That would be acceptable and would be allowed. So if you're on a 65-mile-an-hour road and it's the middle of Martin Luther King weekend and the roads are super nasty, obviously it's rationale to drive slow. And we encourage that because on the flip side, if you get in an accident or you're driving too fast and lose control, that's careless driving. And so it's a very fine balance between too slow and too fast. But the common sense part, and it's talked about in the law, is if you see people behind you and you're driving slow, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to drive slow. Pull over, be courteous, let them pass, and move on with your day. It's going to make things a lot less stressful for you and a lot less stressful for them. But just take that minute, personal responsibility again, pull over, and let them continue.
Thank you. I think the next couple are for CDOT. We had one Chief Wingate was going to handle, but I think Senator Roberts was kind enough to answer questions about legislation on illegal passing. So jumping around, we're back to 3. And this was touched on a little bit, but sanding and plowing strategy. What was the specific strategy CDOT uses for sanding and plowing on icy areas, Highway 40, and how can we add them to use more and when needed?
Step out of his way.
So yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, we follow our winter operations plan, standard operation procedures, but trust me, we're not trying to save money with our sand. If we need to put it down, we'll put it down. When we're out there plowing, we put it down when we need it. We just try to be as effective as we possibly can to maintain all the highways drivable. And as mentioned before, if we get a request from law enforcement and they need more sand, we'll get to it. we'll throw more down. So, yep.
Okay, this may or may not be you. The next one has to do with rumble strips. Data provides rumble strips reduce crashes significantly. Why don't we use them more often, and when will CDOT commit to installing them in high fatality roads? We got a CDOT rep that would like to.
Could be Karen.
Karen?
Yeah, I can answer that. Thank you. So CDOT agrees rumble strips do reduce crashes significantly, and you'll see more and more of them on our roadways as we're completing projects. Installing shoulder rumble strips is ideally we want to have at least a 6-foot shoulder. So they have the rumble strip is about 2 feet wide, and we want to have space for our road bikers that are out there as well. We also evaluate centerline rumble strips where there's a history of head-on crashes. The one thing that we've had a challenge with in the past is some community concerns with noise from rumble strips, but I'm totally of the mind that the safety benefits outweigh that challenge, and certainly we'll be working with communities when we're doing projects to understand their stance on rumble strips. But if we see a need from a safety perspective, we're putting in the rumble strips where we can.
Great, thank you. We're going to move on to our infrastructure and road design section. So CDOT, stay with us here. Passing lanes. Why are there no passing lanes on County Road 9 between Kremling and Silverthorne? And are there any plans to add them?
This is a great question. In general, when we assess passing lanes, we look for areas with higher traffic volumes, areas that have a pattern of those speed differentials that I talked about earlier, where potentially there's a steep upgrade hill and a larger vehicle might travel slower, and there'd be somebody stuck behind them that is then not driving at a comfortable speed. We look for areas where there tends to back up into a queue of vehicles because there's so many, the volume is so high and one vehicle's traveling slower, so there's a longer queue. We look for areas with a history of head-on crashes. And we also look at, well, where are areas where there's poor sight distance that cars can't or vehicles can't pass each other, where we normally see those dashed lines. And so when we see all of those things put together, that's where we prioritize our passing lanes. And that's why we put in the passing lane north of Kremling in the last few years. Right now, Highway 9 is not a top priority because it's not meeting some of those criteria I mentioned earlier. There are areas with better sight distance. There's not as much of a large volume of traffic. We're not seeing those patterns of queues. So while it may help in that area, it's just not as high of a priority as some other areas where we are seeing some crash hotspots that fit these criteria right now.
Great, thank you. And one more for CDOT here, I believe. No controversy here. Traffic signals and roundabouts. Can the 6 traffic lights between Winter Park and Fraser be replaced with roundabouts? And also, can the problematic signal at Highway 40 and County Road 804 be fixed?
Thanks for that question. So this is certainly, I think, a question we get in all of our mountain environments where I live as well. Roundabouts are great because they actually reduce the speed of traffic. And if there is a severity of crashes, it reduces the severity of crashes. So we always, honestly, in our region, Northwest Colorado, we look for lots of opportunities for roundabouts where we can put them in. In this corridor, we actually did look to see if we could replace the signals with the roundabouts. But one thing I think many of us don't think about is the footprint of a roundabout is quite large. And in these cases, to maintain the volumes that we're seeing in this corridor, the roundabouts would be even larger and there would be significant right-of-way impacts. So at this point, signals make the most sense in this corridor. We did highlight the comment on the 40 and 804 signal, and our team has committed to look at that to make sure it's working properly.
Great, thank you, Karen. This one might be a little joint between you and the sheriff, but we got the sheriff set to answer this. Sharing data. Can the county and CDOT commit to share the accident and ticket data with the public regularly so we can see where the problems are?
Real quick, before we answer that question, I did want to go back and address US 40 and County Road 804, that traffic light. Commissioner Ragnar did get a lot of comments from the community about the timing on that light. and how long it was read. I know the mayor was also involved in that discussion. CDOT was very responsive, and they actually made some adjustments to that on specifically, I think, the Sunday pattern to allow traffic to continue. So anyway, thank you, CDOT, for doing that.
One thing you need to notice is that when you're coming off at 804, a lot of times that light will not cycle for the person who's sitting on 804. And you
Okay.
have to wait like 3 cycles to get to that left turn lane or to even get the light to work. And that's been going for years.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
We need to repeat
In reference to data sharing, so that's not necessarily something I have the background on. I don't know, Zeb, if you can speak to that, how CDOT shares our crash data with the public.
Yeah, so I believe CDOT does have a public-facing crash dashboard that you can use to access some of the crash data. So that does exist.
And just to bring it back here to the room, thank you both from CDOT. So the question was, is the county willing to share ticket information, and is the state willing to share accident information? I can tell you what they said was correct, and I've actually looked online and reviewed the CDOT traffic accident data. So I reviewed that just like any citizen can, and then that's also been supplemented from some conversations with CDOT personnel. So that information does exist online. It's actually very user-friendly. You can pull it specific to our region and around the state, and it's actually pretty informative. As far as the county, we are happy to share that information with the community. It is no secret. We get many records requests that come in through our office every week for different types of data and information. But as we move forward, we're happy to share that information. As we leave this meeting tonight, there's a lot of questions that we haven't been able to answer just because of time. We're going to work with our social media platform over the next few weeks and answer some of those questions online as well, just because there's so many of them. So we're going to touch on those in the next few weeks, and we'll throw some of that data out there as well in the next few months, just so that people can see what those numbers are. I think it's super informative for the community to see, and like I said, it's certainly no secret. So we're willing to do that.
While we've got you, one of the questions coming in tonight has to do, since we're in the infrastructure section, with cell coverage on Highway 9 and some of the county road areas. Are we aware of any action going on to improve that?
Yes. So there is some work in progress with a new Verizon tower, kind of County Road 1, Highway 9 area that should actually cover a lot of the area along Trough Road and then down that Highway 9 corridor. That's actually been approved and work in progress. I believe they already signed the special use permit and things for that. There's also some infrastructure and increasing stuff happening with T-Mobile and Verizon along those areas and across the county as well. So unless someone else is more well-versed than me, I believe those both are happening.
And if you'll permit me, while we're here in the infrastructure, we answered a question about some passing lanes on 9. We also have a similar question tonight regarding the new improvements on Highway 40 Red Dirt Hill and the lack of a passing lane at Homestead Hills there. I wonder if CDOT cares to address that. Maybe Karen?
Yeah.
Or is that
sorry,
perfect?
just go ahead, Zeb.
I can kind of address our questions about turn lanes in general a little bit. There's 2 routes to get turn lanes built. The first I'll talk about is through a access permit process where a development will go through Grand County and get to the CDOT access permit unit, and they'll analyze the crash data, the traffic volumes, and a bunch of other factors, and that will determine whether that development has triggered the need for turn lanes or not. And if it does meet those warrants, then the development is responsible for building the turn lanes. The other route is through our capital engineering improvement projects, kind of like Karen mentioned earlier with the Red Dirt Hill Phase 2. We can look at the same things, the volumes, the crashes, and other things, and build turn lanes with those projects when they're warranted. So.
Great, thank you, Zed. We're moving on to our data metrics and tracking section. I believe this is going to be CDOT. The question about speed cameras. What would it legally and logistically take to allow for speed cameras to be used more broadly in Grand County?
I can answer that one. So we're actually working closely with a number of mountain communities right now that are implementing speed cameras, including Glenwood Springs, Vale, and Avon. And so if Grand County would like to implement speed cameras on the roadways, we're glad to work with them to implement them.
Great, thank you.
Whose responsibility would it be to pay for those cameras and operate those cameras?
So there's a question from a
Local
commissioner.
entities.
Okay. Perfect. Sheriff, under measuring successes, you recently started a zero tolerance campaign for speeding. What specific numbers will you use to provide to prove that the zero tolerance initiative is actually working?
So I think we touched on that briefly this evening with the decrease in accidents across the county. As we continue to educate, we continue to enforce, and we have that constant visibility and our staffing increases. Our goal is for the accidents to go down. Obviously, we're going to be out there issuing tickets, but the goal is to reduce property damage and certainly reduce injuries. So both of those things would be a great success monitoring of that.
Perfect. And then we've got a question on near miss reporting. Can the county create a simple online tool for residents to report dangerous near misses so police know where to patrol before a crash happens?
So I actually really like this idea that came in. This was a great community idea, something that we can do at the sheriff's office very, very easily. We can post on our social media and actually collect some data from you guys. I mean, this is something that we can have done in 5 minutes tomorrow and get pushed out. I really like this idea. Currently, I receive a lot of calls and a lot of emails from the commissioners who speak to a lot of you who report to them, aggressive driving on County Road 8, aggressive driving on County Road 5, speeding vehicles, things like that. So the citizens are reaching out to our elected officials. The commissioners are quick to reach out to me and provide those locations. We then push those out to our patrol division. So this would just be an expansion of that to let these guys know where they need to focus at. So we probably won't be able to actually commit to that tomorrow, like I just said, but we'll have that within the next week. We'll probably have that within the next week or so here and get that out on our social media.
The button right next to is the pass open.
Exactly. Yes.
Perfect.
I could offer 1 year miss that permit to the County Road 54 turnoff. We've been sitting ducks there for 30 years and complaining to the county about this, but there's a 6% grade and we're going to get crushed there. And it just last weekend, right after that $22 million upgrade, we now see that the shoulder is smaller and someone was passed on the left when they were stopped. If you can imagine this, stopped waiting to make the left. Yeah, you'd be toast. And so basically that upgrade really hasn't been an improvement. And if you see, it's not, the shoulder is narrower, it's harder to pass on the right, and we're really sitting ducks now. I'd be amazed if we're not going to have an accident.
Great. We take one or two more here, and then I think the manager's hoping to open it up to some additional questions. We had one that had to do with upcoming projects and improvements. I think CDOT handled that earlier, and so I'm going to finish up with a policy and resource question. What is the most important piece of advice we can give to young drivers to keep them safe? And we identified Chief Wingate to answer this.
I'm going to step out this way.
And if you keep
Yeah. This is a fantastic question. It's one that every parent, thinks about and worries about. I'm not a parent myself, but I do have a niece who just turned 16 and I spend a lot of time worrying about her behind the wheel. The biggest, most important things are that they are operating a multi-ton weapon. And so seatbelts on, phones down, eyes up. And especially with our younger folks, that's harder than it's ever been because we're moving into a generation who's spent their entire life on a screen. And so focus on the real world is a challenge. And I see that with Sienna every day that she's around, but we've really got to focus on paying attention, and most importantly, buckling up. That can't be stressed enough. We all know that story about our cousin's friend's uncle's dog back in the day who only survived a crash because they weren't wearing a seatbelt. That was probably true in a 1984 Monte Carlo. But the vehicles, the vehicles today, they're designed so that as long as you stay in that occupant space, that a lot of these crashes that used to be fatal are highly survivable. And the only thing that keeps you in that space is that seatbelt. We've seen in the last 60 days on roads in Grand County crashes where 10 years ago everybody involved would be deceased. But those crash boxes are built better than they ever have been, and they continue to get better. So that biggest thing is the seat belts. Watch the speed, and then the real world is passing all around us. We got to look up and see it every once in a while, especially through the windshield.
Also, one other thing, lead by example when you're driving with your kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially.
Very true. Okay, we're going to open it up to the audience for questions, and then we will wrap it up by talking with the sheriff on next steps and moving forward tonight. So let's hear it. Sir.
So really happy to see
Yeah. Or hold on just a second, sir. Can they hear it?
You have to repeat the question. There we go.
Okay.
They can't hear you.
Sure. That'd be great. Don't touch the mic. I'll get in trouble for you touching the mic.
I'm Matt Erico. I'm a local community member. My main concern is, I'm happy to see the zero tolerance enforcement. But I mean, really across the nation, we're seeing kind of a reluctance on judges to enforce real consequences. Often dismissing or reducing consequences or violations. So, what specific local, state, or federal reforms can we pursue to enhance judicial accountability? Yeah.
Thank you for your question. Sheriff, would you like to address that?
I think I can take part of that, and then I might ask Senator Roberts as well. So in one of my slides earlier, I talked about law enforcement being one part of the criminal justice process. Law enforcement is out there doing our job every day, making arrests, issuing citations, keeping our community safe. I share the concern with each and every one of our citizens as far as the lack of accountability that unfortunately has been created across our state. I've been very, very vocal about that, is that we have got to have accountability. If we don't have accountability to the criminal offender or to those that are putting risk on our highways, we're facing the consequences that we faced this year. There's no question about that. We take that very, very seriously. Unfortunately, every day I ask my staff to go out and do their very, very best to do what they can for our piece of the puzzle. I have concerns about the rest of the pieces of the puzzle. I'd like to let Senator Roberts speak. He is definitely attempting to work on a portion of this with the super speeder bill and things like that. So we do have some work in progress, but the people do need to be held accountable between bond reform, between low-level offenses, between high-level offenses being reduced to low-level offenses. There's a lot of concern out there, and I think it's a systematic problem. It's not specific to Grand County. A lot of times these judges are put into situations where they're forced to make a decision based on legislation and based on laws. And I think that's happening in Grand County and across our state. So 100% as your sheriff, I think this is something that we need to work on. It is a problem, and you'll hear me be very outspoken about it. Senator Roberts, anything you'd like to touch as far as the legislative process on that or your time with your previous career?
Yeah, thanks, Sheriff. Agree with what you just said. I've been involved in a few legislative efforts over the last few years to propose bond reform and try to ensure that repeat offenders of a variety of kinds face stiffer or higher bond conditions and higher bond amounts. Unfortunately, those bills have not been able to pass over the last few years, but it's something that I want to continue to work on. As the sheriff noted, I have some experience in this. I used to be a prosecutor, a deputy district attorney in the 5th Judicial District, and so I have been involved in a lot of these cases and argued bond many times. It is a combination of legislation and state law that a judge considers, but also their constitutional obligations to the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And so the judges weigh a variety of things that is partly in the control of the legislature, but also partly not in the control of the legislature or law enforcement or even the DA's office. So this is a complicated question, but I appreciate you and agree with the premise of your question. On the super speeder thing, that's why we're proposing this, is this would at least hold the folks in this subject area of traffic safety and speeding more accountable, because it would escalate the penalties if they continue to speed, which ultimately will result in a suspension of their driver's license if they accrue too many points. We're working in a provision of the bill that would require in-court appearance by the defendant after a certain number of speeding violations. So they can't just mail in their fine and move on with their lives. Like, they would actually have to travel to Hot Sulphur Springs or whichever county seat the violation occurred in to try to create a little bit more accountability.
Thank you, sir. And just to bring this back and close this out real quick, I just want to give a quick example. So many of us across the county see people passing illegally all the time. So passing on a solid yellow line. If one of our deputies stops and issues a citation for that offense, it's passing when prohibited, it's a $135 fine. And so when we make these stops, we issue a citation for $135. I want you to think about that $135 as a financial consequence. But what is the real consequence in life? Is you make that pass, you don't get back in your lane in time, and you crash with somebody, which is a head-on collision, which we heard CDOT talk about tonight. That is the real consequence. And unfortunately, as busy as our lives are right now, everyone is in a hurry. Everyone packs 8 or 10 meetings into their day. Everyone's trying to get home for the family dinner because they got off work late. And so everybody is trying to get to the location as quick as they can. Sometimes they're willing to take that chance for that $135, but they're really not thinking about that consequence, that real world impact that we talked about earlier. And so I want to remind people, it's not about the ticket. It's not about the financial fine. It's not about where that fine amount goes. It's about lives. And that's what we're trying to focus on, is getting people to understand that personal responsibility. Personal responsibility, take a minute to slow down, get there safe so you can continue the next day. Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Steigers, come on up.
Thanks, guys. Sure. My name's Jason Steigers. I've lived in Grand County my whole life, 54 years. I drive on average 20,000 miles a year on our roads up here. I'm a local contractor. That's the reason why. One thing, opinion, the Red Dirt Hill project, I apologize, but it was a joke. Just as this gentleman brought up, those turning lanes should have been put in with this project, without a question. I don't know why they weren't. Second opinion is, living up here as long as I have, I've seen our roads up here resurfaced multiple times up until about 8 years ago. That doesn't happen anymore. They don't even do the chip and seal anymore like they used to do. I know it's irritating to people when they're doing that, but it's provided way better roadways than I've taught my kids to drive on, taught my kids to drive and miss potholes. And I think that's a leading cause to a lot of the accidents we do have up here. But third and most important, my question is, why are we not legislating this whole cell phone usage issue? I avoid, on average, at least 5 to 8 head-on collisions every week. Every time I pass those individuals, they're doing this. Every single time. Something has to be done with the cell phone distraction. My idea is it should be charged no less than a DWAI or even a DUI in that case. I think if we start legislating bigger and harder consequences on cell phone usage, we might actually be able to finally see for once a drop in the cell phone usage, because it's absolutely one of the most horrendous things I witness every day driving on these roads in Grand County. So if somebody could ask why we're not working on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Senator Roberts, would you like to take that question, please?
Sure. Thank you for the question, sir. Appreciate it. So Colorado actually has a fairly new hands-free driving law. The legislature passed a bill that I was proud to support in 2024 that makes it illegal to operate a motor vehicle while using a cell phone, either texting or even holding it to your ear. You have to have a Bluetooth or some sort of speaker device to talk on the phone while you're driving, according to state law now. That law took effect January 1st of this year. So it's been in effect about 11 months now. I think CDOT has some statistics that shows we're seeing instances of distracted driving and crashes caused by distracted driving go down statewide, at least, maybe not locally, but that is law in Colorado. It took several years to get that bill passed. There was a lot of pushback to putting that in place, but it did get done. It got signed into law and it's in effect now. The penalties are a traffic violation. It is not as severe as you suggested. I don't disagree with you that would certainly increase enforcement. But I think hopefully positive for you to know that we actually do have a hands-free driving law in Colorado. It's been in effect now for just under a year and hopefully is starting to make a little bit of a difference. We could have the conversation about increasing the penalties. I imagine my colleagues at the legislature would want to see a few more years of data to justify increasing the penalties that much, but that's where we are right now.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have more questions from the audience? Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name is Tara Thompson, and I actually live in the new traffic pattern here in Granby. I think my main question is, why do we need to have crash data to make a change? The reason I'm asking is I'm very concerned about the traffic pattern for the town of Granby and the new school. It's really hard to have compliance when you have certain rules of the road that only are applicable during certain times and certain days of the week. I don't have kids in school, so I don't know when the school is out. They were out the whole week of Thanksgiving, and I'm driving the one way and the one way, and there's a no left turn sign, and people are turning left. I've brought my concerns to the town of Granby several different times. Nothing has happened, and I'm afraid that we're just waiting for some kid to get creamed because there's no sidewalk before something happens. So that's my concern, is that we're waiting for something to happen to make a change. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we have two styles of traffic, that I'm driving unnaturally on the wrong side of the road and I'm compliant and there's a car headed towards me. What am I supposed to do? As a citizen, I'm responsible and I move over into the wrong lane so that I don't get crashed into, but this has happened 4 times this school year. My other comment is it's not just the cell phones, because all cars now are built in with the in display. So it's not just the phones that are distracting, but in order for me to turn my heat down in my car, I have to look away from the windshield and I can't touch a knob anymore and change that. I have to look at a display. So I applaud everyone that's in this room, but I feel like Grand County's trying to solve a problem that's a systemic issue with society. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tara. Sergeant Seidner is online. Would you care to answer that question, sir? He's with Granby PD.
Should be on the speaker room.
Have him? No. Okay. If we can't get him on there, Tara, we will get that question answered and back to you and back to the group.
Saying that they're going to evaluate data and see if something needs to be done. Well, where's the follow-up?
Thank you. Other questions? Sir, in the back. Come on up. Sorry, Mayor. You're next.
Excuse me if I'm a little nervous. I don't talk in public much. I'm very new to the county, and what I like is this type of meetings you can do. In Denver, this doesn't happen. Now, I remember something years ago that I think everybody in this room would. Out in front of the fire department or the high school, there's these cars that are in these horrendous accidents. And they're there. You can walk up and look at these. And, you know, that disappeared over the years. So without going on about it, I don't know if that's something to elaborate on. It certainly wouldn't take much funding or anything, but it sure does give you, and looking on here, even for the data for the roads, all you see is news. You know, another fatal accident on Highway 40, and it just takes up a lot of, you've got to really look to find the data. So I don't know if there's something we can do about that.
Thank you.
So about 2 years ago, I requested a speed study through through downtown Fraser, try and get it reduced to at least 30. You know, it's at 35 now, and that speed study hasn't been done. I haven't heard anything from the folks at CDOT that I had requested one for in about a year and a half. I would love to see municipalities be able to choose the speed limits on their roads rather than CDOT. I understand CDOT's goal is to move traffic as efficiently as possible, but I think the municipalities should be able to have say in how fast we want our cars to be going through our towns.
Okay, let's take one more question and then we'll wrap it up. Keith, come on up.
Wanted to address the concerns of the very poor condition of Highway 40 due to what I'd consider to be road maintenance. We've talked about giant projects, but we have to drive daily on roads that I'll tell you at times are not only just unsafe, but they're downright dangerous. I'd go as far as to say the March 3rd crash on Highway 40 and Lakota was probably caused by road conditions due to the enormous potholes in the road and sometimes in places where they're unpassable. Gentleman said he's teaching his kids to drive. He's teaching them to drive around potholes. Brian told us earlier that they had to do a social media campaign to get the roads maintained in Fraser and Winter Park. And what was that in 2023? And then we heard Karen say, hey, let me wave our flag on what we've done for Grand County, where we put work into Berthoud Pass and we put work into Highway and Fraser and Winter Park. And we did that because the roads were dangerous, not because it was a great improvement. So with that, I'll ask our senator and our speaker, what can we do to help CDOT be able to maintain these roads, which right now at the Y entrance and towards Winter Park are already deteriorating, and we're just beginning our winter. So I think CDOT here needs some help, and I think we need to look at preventative versus reactionary. So I'd ask our senator and our speaker to address that.
You're on mute, Julie.
Thanks. You'd think I'd know. Thank you for the question. And I might also invite Rick Ritter to speak as well to the challenge of resources in our state. So much of our funding comes from the federal government. We, in just a few short years ago, passed Senate Bill 260 to try and create funding streams that would really try to mitigate the $9 billion, at that time, the $9 billion worth of need we had, not only in our rural communities, but in suburban and urban areas. We were so far behind, still are far behind in our transportation infrastructure funding needs. And there isn't a community I represent that isn't in need of more dollars for maintenance, infrastructure improvements, projects that have been sitting dormant for years because they have not risen to the level of priority while we see them as priority in our communities. The competition for those dollars has been great. And I think, even this last year, we had to delay some of the projects because the state simply does not have the funding to be able to move forward with some innovative transit efforts that had been in the making and underway for several years. Now that we're facing another $800 to $900 million shortfall in our budget revenue, I am hopeful that we can protect our transportation investments. Certainly, we want to see more of those dollars realized from Senate Bill 260. But I hear you and want you to know that we struggle every day to continue to meet the expectations of those in our communities for, improvements on roads and bridges in every part of the state.
If I could jump on the speaker's comments, a couple of things. As noted, we are on a significant statewide budget crunch. And this hasn't just to do with roads and highways, it's about everything. And we've struggled at CDOT to continue to invest in our roads and highways to the point where we have had to delay projects. We've had to move and shift allocations 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. That said, more specifically as it relates to Grant County, about 2 months ago, there was a train run of the commissioners from Denver to Glenwood. And as we were going through Byers Canyon, one of my commissioners from Denver area said, "Oh my God, that road's a mess." And it was between Granby and Tabernacle. And I said, yes, that is precisely why we need greater funding for roads and highways in rural Colorado, but specifically in Northwest Colorado. But it was an aha moment for a number of individuals on that train to recognize that, fundamentally the food and fiber supply throughout the state is reliant upon our ability to safely transport our products, as well as the needs such as food and medical supplies throughout the state. And I think we made some progress. It's going to be slow because we all know the problems with Tabor, but we have gotten to a place where we're not able to meet the needs due to the nature of the caps that are placed on our state budget. But yeah, we are well aware of the problem.
Okay, Speaker McCloskey, Commissioner Ritter, thank you for your comments in addressing that question. I'd like to now close the floor to questions and turn it over to Sheriff Schroetlen to wrap it up. And we're going to talk about what's next and next steps. Thank you, sir.
Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
All due respect, sir, I would like to make a quick comment.
You bet, sir.
Let's not forget why we're here.
Here.
CDOT was here all summer.
Come up here for a second.
Did a great job. We're not here to tongue lash people. We're here because we care about our community. So if your idea is to come here and tongue lash and point fingers, I don't think that's what we're trying to do here. We talk about paying consequences, and I'm going to echo the coroner. She said, if we'd have put our seatbelts on, they might be here today. Well, those people chose not to. I hate to be the doom and gloom guy, but if they'd have wore their seatbelt, would they be here today? Yes. So they paid those consequences. Yes, I agree. We need to pay consequences at higher levels. But all of you make that same choice. And we all make the same mistake. We've all been distracted at one point in time when you're driving. If you tell me you're not, you're full of it. Most of you probably know who I am and know the job that I've done for this county. And I guarantee you, not every one of you have read every sign between here and Denver. Don't tell me you did, because again, you're full of crap. But we come here for a reason. We come here because we care about our community. We don't come here to point fingers at CDOT that just spent all summer making an effort to improve your roads. How about thank you? You guys did a great job. Thank you. I've seen much improvement on our roads this winter already. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I know you guys have heard a lot from me this evening, and we've been going for over about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this up with one slide. The road ahead for Grand County. What's next? I mean, I think it's pretty fitting. We've kind of talked about all this throughout the evening, and I just want to highlight 5 critical areas as we move forward from tonight, moving into the future. I think we can all agree that these are a great start. Are they going to solve everything? Are we going to continue to have fatal accidents? Unfortunately, yes. If I sit up here as a sheriff and I told you that we're not going to have any other fatals, I'd be lying to you from the get-go. We're going to have them. Our goal is to reduce them. Reduce the serious injuries, put those seatbelts on. So let's talking funding and infrastructure. The county applied for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. I think it was back in August. We'll wait and see what happens with that. But that's some additional grant funding towards Grand County. Senator Roberts has spoken about the pending legislation that he's looking to present in the 2026 legislative session. Education, Alive at 25 driver education through our school resource officer program. Our school resource officer at West Grand High School has been working diligently on this outside of this meeting to get this program up. He recognizes a need because he works with our kids every day to get this program going. So get some of these kids some additional driver's education training. Some of our officers are looking to teach some of that training. I think it'd be a great opportunity. You know, our officers drive these roads every day. They attend advanced driver training constantly. Our officers are on the track a minimum of 2 times a year, where you have to learn those skills in those intense environments to make sure that you survive as well. So being able to take some of these skills that we have, in addition to that Alive at 25 program, and roll that out, that's our goal for education. Enforcement strategy, we mentioned reallocation of 2 deputy positions to increase some additional staffing. So we'll work on getting those hired. Obviously, we face hiring challenges, but we're going to get started on that process. Community collaboration. You know, my thanks to Derek and his team for meeting this weekend, for being at the table today. My commitment to them is to work with them. I'd like to reach out to them and have our leadership team meet with them on a monthly basis for the next few months until we get some answers, till we get some solutions and figure out what's going on. And I think I can speak for all of our community leaders that are willing to sit at the table with them as well. I'm sure Chief White would allow me another evening in his room here to do that. So I think between those 5 items, the road ahead for Grand County looks great. I'm looking forward to making our community better, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. So,